Shalom and welcome to Jerusalem Studio. 5 years have passed since the spring of 2011, with dramatic changes that affected Egypt and turned it upside down. Two regimes have fallen, ongoing battles are raging, mass executions have taken place, and an intensified effort to alleviate the battered economy are just a few and the many significant occurrences in the Arab world's most populated country. With us in today's program to discuss this topic are senior lecturer at Tel Aviv University's Department of Middle East and African History, Dr. Mira Tzoref. I'd like also to welcome Mr. Tzvi Mazel, who is a former Israeli ambassador to Egypt and a senior researcher at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Welcome. Yeah. I'd like also to welcome our TV7 analyst, Mr. Amir Oren. Amir, the situation is complicated. It was complicated, and it's not getting less complicated. Give us a little review of the situation of the matter.
We are talking about the past 5 years, which can be divided into two equal halves. You have the period between January of 2011 till the summer, July of 2013, and then the Sisi period from the summer of 2013 until the present. Now, in absolute terms, the situation is very bad. Egypt is in a very dire situation. But relatively speaking, if you compare it to other places in the Arab world, not so bad.
Interesting. Well, not so bad is an interesting statement on the situation. Nonetheless, Dr. Mira Tzoref, the really significance of the ongoing occurrences that happened in the past 5 years, from a country defined as the leading country of the Arab world to deteriorate into not even a mid-country that is trying to scrap whatever is left from this chaotic region. How do you view the situation in those past 5 years in a few sentences, if you will?
Well, if we are talking about the first period that Amir mentioned, it was really a very unusual revolution. It was the first time in the modern history of Egypt that in a very traditional and patriarchal society, young people turned the pyramid upside down. It is not that a usual thing in our area. And it was done in a very elegant, white way. And it is still very different from other coup d'etat or revolution that took place in previous period. That's a very crucial point to understand and to elaborate on. Mm-hmm. It was a euphoria. And in each and every revolution, we have the euphoria. But the aftershock period, the second one that Amir mentioned, is completely a different period. First of all, it was the first time in history that the Muslim Brotherhood gained an opportunity to seize power. And during that period, it was the first time that they missed an historical opportunity to remain in power. And although Sisi toppled down Mohammed Morsi, the president of the Muslim Brotherhood, I want to say that the Muslim Brotherhood is not going to disappear. They are not going to evaporate. They are there.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting, the whole Muslim Brotherhood's involvement, as Dr. Tzoref stated, Mr. Mazel, regarding the uprising, which was quite a spontaneous occurrence to a certain extent. Those young people who went to the streets, who protested, who demanded change, were actually not really organized, but at the same time, we had the Muslim Brotherhood who had the backing of Turkey, of Qatar, of other regional powers, and also international powers, as we stated in previous programs. Right now, we can really see that the Muslim Brotherhood was subsided on the one hand. The young people didn't receive that power that was stolen from them, or the revolution that was stolen from them, or the metaphor of that. But at the same time, there is a certain situation where it seemed like they were subsided, but the ideology is still there, and it's still very strong to a certain extent on the streets. What can you tell us about that?
I think what I missed here, the former my former friends who spoke, the word Islam, in spite of the revolution that liberated the Egyptian people. Now they know they can do something. They are not afraid anymore from the government, even though the government is quite strong and is throwing journalists into prison. Even the press is much more free, you see. But if someone of us here or in the West expected that Egypt will completely change, it will be changed, it will become a democracy, well, this is a big, big mistake. Because between human rights and democracy and Egypt, there are 1,400 years of Islam. And Islam is anti-democratic completely in its way. Islam is based on the Sharia, on the total submission to Allah, etc., etc. And you didn't expect that those young people that were probably relatively liberal, once they finished at night the demonstration, Tahrir went back home and became Democrat. No. But there is a big change that's very important. Now, about the Muslim Brothers. The Muslim Brothers, as Dr. Tzoref said, they missed a wonderful opportunity. They were elected, they've been elected democratically. Can you imagine? After 80 years, after a fight, of prisons, of whatever, and they missed it. But they were elected because the Egyptian people is really Muslim, Islamic. They want still Islam, they wanted Islam. And Muslim Brothers, at that time, that movement was the only political, religious organized force. So, and it was also sustained by the army, supported by the army. So they get back. After a few months with Morsi, the people understood, not only the army or Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, they understood that Muslim Brothers were setting up an Islamic dictatorship, like Iran, Sunni, not Shia. Okay, so they started demonstrating 3 months after the coming to power of Mr. Morsi. They did not want him because he changed completely the employees in the Ministry of Cult, of Information, Education, whatever. They tried really to impose a dictatorship. So. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi came and together with the people, they did what they did, and the Muslim Brothers are out. I think that now Muslim Brothers are in a big, big crisis, a very big crisis, because many of them are in prisons, and some others are in Turkey or in Qatar or somewhere else. They cannot give real orders and to organize their own people, and the young generation is tending to go for more violence. So they are in trouble. I'm not sure they will survive that revolution as a really important force. They are still there because they have the infrastructure. You are perfectly right, Dr. Tzoref. But to come back to power now, absolutely not. No, Egypt doesn't want Islam as power.
Mr. Owen?
Egypt is, of course, a very proud ancient civilization built along the Nile. And as Ambassador Mazael mentioned, for the last 1,400 years, it has also been Islamized. But what is important is the institution of the military. Now, in other societies, you have France from Napoleon on. If you want a central government to control all the districts, all the periphery, you must base it on a strong civil service, or in this case, military and security service, the Mukhabarat, which are competing right now. And even earlier, the Interior Ministry and the military were not always allies. Now, there was this break that we talked about between Mubarak and Sisi, two generals, with Morsi. And in the interim period, there were efforts to have two other generals, first Omar Suleiman and then Mohammad Tantawi. It failed, but you remember that Morsi's rival was also a general, retired General Ahmed Shafiq. And this was a sort of an effort by the military to put forward a candidate. Now, it is not the person of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi which is important, even though he does have a sort of a cult of personality. It is the institution of the military, the SCAF, the Supreme Command of the Armed Forces, out of which Sisi came, and if he doesn't succeed, maybe he will be replaced. But the military will keep ruling Egypt, and if someone tries to oust the military, we will have a civil war.
Dr. Tzoref.
Yeah, I want to comment on
Please.
both Amir and Mr. Ambassador Tzvi Mazel. I think we miss one point. The point is that it is the first time that young people in Egypt felt the sweet taste of being sovereign. Being sovereign means that we are no more the servants of the ruler. Now the ruler will work 24/7 for us, which means that even if Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is being admired by most of the Egyptians, for now, for the time being, if it doesn't work for the sake of the young people, there is a very crowded prison, but there is one more place for Abdel Fattah al-Sisi as well. And this is what I mean by a revolution.
Mr. Mazel.
Okay, but speaking about Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, I think he is the main personality now. He's the strong man, but you cannot compare him neither to Nasser, neither to Mubarak. He's completely different by age and by period. And then he said himself, I am coming to rule Egypt. I would like to, before he was elected, to rule Egypt, to do one and only thing, to put Egypt on the road of sustainable economic growth. I need 2, 3, 4 years. That's all. If I don't succeed, I go away, you oust me, you send me away. And he's doing, and absolutely there is some success. It's difficult because you have 90 million people, half of them are poor.
Does the
illiterate,
population
whatever.
actually see it as a success?
Yes, absolutely. The economic growth in 2015 is 4.2. He expects 5.5 next year, something wonderful for Egypt, even though Egypt needs 7% per year for at least 10 years to go up. It will not happen, but he's doing something very, very important. And listen, he gave permission to big companies to enter, freedom, total freedom to big companies from the West and from Russia to come for for industrial project, for looking for gas, for oil, and they have discovered very important discoveries in oil and gas by any company, the Zohr field, etc., etc. So, and then he also set up a beginning of very big project like Suez Canal, like industrial zone, whatever. 3,000 kilometers of autostrad, a new administrative capital near Cairo on the east, or something big is being done. The problem is that he does not have enough technology, neither money, and he's trying to do it. That's the problem.
This brings up a couple of questions I'd like to refer to you, Mr. Oren. When we're talking about the Egyptian economy, we hear the numbers 4.2 rise to 5.5. We see various endeavors and apparent endeavors, whether it's the new extension of the Suez Canal and other aspects to his efforts. But nonetheless, within those 90 million people in Egypt, how significant is it actually? Do the people on the street feel this change? Is this really apparent on the one hand? And on the other hand, will he really have this lifeline where he'll be able to continue to prove the Egyptians right that he indeed is the man for the job?
If you have a full belly and a minimal standard of living, you can think rationally and see that what Ambassador Mazel just described is the right path, because it has to be gradual. It cannot happen overnight. However, the poor and illiterate are short-tempered. They do not have the attention span, and they cannot wait for so much longer. And because the expectations were not met and people were readily disappointed, Sisi must control the country even more forcefully than he intended. But this brings back the old question of a delicate balance between what a strongman can do, take a Saddam Hussein, for instance, and what happens when it becomes repression and suppression and you have 40,000 people in prison for political...
40? Yeah, sure.
40,000.
I heard about 15.
40,000. The number that the Egyptian press is putting forward is 41,000 political prisoners, including Muslim brothers and others. And therefore, the very measures that Sisi is putting, because the economy needs them, are backfiring on him. And the country does not have the 2-3 years in order to wait for this success.
Dr. Zoref, how do you view this?
I think that the most important group that should be put in the center of our analyzation is the young people. They are highly educated. They are unemployed. They are not able to get married. They are totally frustrated.
Do they view, though, this new accomplishments which were stated by Ambassador Mazel and also Mr. Oren, when it comes to the economic growth of the country, when it comes to the vision to the future, as you put it, they're very highly educated. They seek to work and to really develop their country, but do they indeed have a full belly to maintain that will, or are they demanding something to happen now?
They want it now. They still have patience. They give him much more time. And the evidence to that when Morsi gained power, there was a virtual project called the Morsi Matter. The public, the Egyptian public, mainly the youth, were called to measure the president's activities, their achievements and failures on a daily basis. And when Morsi was toppled down and Sisi gained power, it turned to be the Sisi Matter, which means that the public is very, very followed very carefully what the president does on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So they still have a little bit of patience, but not much more than that.
Mm-hmm. Ambassador Mazel, I'd like to hear your response to that, but also I'd like to get a regional aspect of things. Egypt has been on the foreign policy of things, been very active with the foreign minister of Egypt being very tentative to the different changes currently occurring with the vacuum by the United States in the region, on the one hand, with Russian interests, Chinese interests, and other countries, whether they're world powers or regional powers, that really are seeking some kind of involvement within Egypt. And as you put also on the economic level, there's a lot of interest which is flooding to that area, also by Israel, to that matter. How do you view this?
Just one remark before.
Please.
The people of Egypt, yes, many of them are poor, as we know, but they know that, they probably know, who knows, probably know that Sisi is their last chance. And they are not going to throw him away in the coming year or 2 years. I think they will wait because they are seeing that he's working for Egypt. And at the same time, he has to deal with the security problems. And they don't have any other alternative. That's the problem. When he was elected, everybody understood he's the last chance of this country.
But support is considered to have declined from about 90% to 60%.
The what?
The support, the public support.
It was 80 something or 90, and now it's 60. Okay, good. Okay, this is life. Okay. But I don't see tomorrow demonstration against Sisi because he's doing something, and they know it. He canceled 70 or 80% of the subsidies of oil. On gas and oil, and prices went up, and the people accepted it. So, I mean, with illiteracy of 35% and 12% of hepatitis C and 90 million, it's difficult. This is one thing, okay? Mm-hmm. So we have to be patient. But he's a good man, he's a rational man. Again, he's not Nasser, neither Mubarak, and I don't like what the Western press is writing about him because it's not true. Mm-hmm. He knows it better than us. If he opens completely the country, he makes a real democracy, there will be demonstration in the street, everybody fighting each other. That's why he needs a parliament that will be his parliament, and he did it. The parliament was elected. There are no liberal parties there. So the parties that were created for the election are parties of regional notabilities, businessmen, etc., and they will help him to cross that difficult period.
Party of technocrats. Regarding
now-
the foreign
now just-
policy,
Yes, now the original point. This is really very interesting. Egypt under Mubarak used to be the most important country in the Middle East, even though it wasn't people in peace with Israel, because it was a stable country, strong militarily, and with the support of the United States and Israel, absolutely. And it was the head of the front against Iran. Now Egypt is abandoned by Obama, by America, you see, attacked by radical Islam, many economic problems, as you just said. So Egypt is not what it used to be. So it went to China, it went to Russia, and Russia and Egypt are working quite nicely. Just yesterday, the last Russian delegation left after they've signed about 10 agreements about industrial and scientific issues. So Egypt now would like to regain its force, but it cannot now.
noted. Mr.
It
Amir.
is better for such a discussion for one to be in conflict with Ambassador Bazel, but unfortunately one has to agree with his analysis. Now, of course, President Obama took the genie out of the bottle in Cairo in June of 2009. And he didn't realize what he was going to let loose. Now, having done that and having undergone the anti-Mubarak demonstrations and what followed, yes, Egypt is weaker today regionally than it was 5-6 years ago. However, it is still the anchor. This is the one country which connects the Maghreb with the Mashreq, the west of the Arab world with the east, and of course, Israel, the old Palestine, is standing in the middle. It interferes with the Arab world wishes to connect. The United States has resumed its military relationship with Egypt. President Obama had a long talk with President Sisi. He set forward the goals for military aid for the next 3-4 years. Specifically, he is going to work on border control, on the anti-terror campaign, and other measures. It is a very important ally of Israel. There are very good relations between the Israeli security and military establishment and Egypt. And there was always a disparity between Egypt's military power and its economic viability.
Yeah.
So this is Egypt is going to bounce back.
Absolutely. Doctor, we're talking right now also about a lot of Egyptians who have left Egypt with mass migration from the Middle East. A lot of refugees have been flooding to Europe and to the West. Nonetheless, many of them were also migrants, people from Egypt, among others. And many of them were young Egyptians that were looking for a better future in Europe. I've spoken to a few security experts who have been closely watching those people and also have gone with them from Egypt and other places to Europe, and they actually have an assessment that a lot of the rapings that occurred in Germany and other places were conducted by Egyptian gangs, nonetheless. So, of course, this is
It's
security.
not yet been proven.
Of course. Nonetheless, there is a pointing finger
Dr.
towards
Saref
that.
is protecting her Egyptians.
Okay.
But please, how do you view this eagerness on the one hand to achieve a better Egypt, but on the other hand also to leave and seek for a better future abroad?
Well, it is so natural and so normal that young people want to live normal life. And Egypt, the way it handles their young people, it is not possible for them to live normal life. That's why they are looking for other opportunities to handle their life. That's why they immigrate from Egypt. But in spite of that fact, these young people that are outside the country, they are still Egyptian patriots. It is really weird and strange, but the way they talk, they are still dream and want to go back to Egypt. But there is a condition, and the condition is normal life inside the country, inside their motherland. And as long as it is not possible for them, they are going to stay there. I want to say that it is not an ideal period to be an immigrant in Europe, neither in the United States, for the Egyptians.
Noted. Ambassador Mazel, how do you view this? We don't have very much time left,
Okay.
so please.
You know, I would recommend to the United States and Western Europe to really organize a very important support to Egypt, economic-wise, investment-wise, technological-wise. Because if ever it happens, and God forbid it will not happen, if Egypt falls in the hands of Islam, like Syria or Iraq, there will be 20 more million refugees in Europe. They should understand it. They should understand that Egypt is the anchor of the Middle East, as our friend said a few minutes ago, you see. So we need someone to understand it in the West to help Egypt to remain in place. This is the most important thing, you see. Absolutely. There's no other way to save the Middle East. At least Egypt should remain as it is, the most ancient, the most important country in the region.
Mr. Oren, this is indeed a valid concern, which Israel has also focused on for quite a while now, assuring the stability of Egypt and the authorities in Egypt. What can you tell us about that? We don't have much time left, please.
Egypt, of course, was Israel's most powerful enemy. And ever since Sadat was in power, it's Israel's most powerful neighbor in peace. But Israel has not done enough. Israel did not do its part in the deal regarding the Palestinian question in order for the Egyptian government to convince its public that it can normalize its relationship with Israel so that ambassadors such as Mr. Mazel would be even more free to represent Israel in Cairo. And there are many reasons for Israel to go for peace with the Palestinians. But this is one concern, and hopefully the Israeli government will look into it.
It's indeed one of the Egyptian concerns which was discussed about. Nonetheless, the stability reasoning. How do you view this, Dr. Tzoref? You have about 2 sentences, please.
I think the most important thing is to communicate with the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is now split between 2 parts, the moderates and the conservatives. There is an opportunity for Abd al-Fattah al-Sisi to communicate with them and to bring them back to the political game. It is very necessary because the Egyptian society is being characterized by being a solidarity society.
Ambassador Mazel, the last sentence to you about Israeli-Egyptian interests.
Yes.
1 sentence.
Israel and Egypt are in the same bed. They fight radical Islam and are not being helped by the West. That's the problem, okay? Because some people in the West don't understand it.
This is all the time
And
that we have for today. I'm sorry.
One more.
We're out of time. I'm sorry.
Malas.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Ambassador Tzvi Mazel, for coming here. Dr. Mira Tzoref, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Amir Oren, for being here. And I'd like to thank our viewers, and we will see you next week. You just watched Jerusalem Studio. If you were enriched by the program, please consider supporting Heaven TV7 Jerusalem. Call us at 0600 10077 or send your donation using the bank account reference number on the screen. You can also donate via PayPal. Jerusalem Studio is made possible by your donation.